Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Montreal. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Cheon, and we've got two undefeateds here battling it out on the first day. We've got Shaun McLaren. He's playing against Paul Dean. And by the way, both of them Canadians as well.
Yep.
Kind of cool.
I was just like, 4 energy. How do you do that? With the puzzle knot.
Yeah, puzzle knot in an ether hub.
So one interesting thing I noticed about Paul, he definitely has a deck that's highly tuned for the mirror. He is playing, like I said before, the main deck counter magic, right? He's got the sensors and the negate, along with the Dissenter's Deliverance. But he's also playing 2 copies of Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, which is a little bit risky, right? Because
that sounds like a lot risky.
yeah, you're playing
colorless lands in a 3-color deck?
Yeah, you're playing a 3-color deck where you're trying to play Rogue Refiner or Whirler Virtuoso on turn 3, and you're definitely sacrificing some consistency there because I look at his list, he only has 11 ways to play a tune with Aether turn 1 because he removed, he's only playing with, for example, 2 copies of Botanical Sanctum. So he has, and he's not playing more forests, so he has less ways to attune turn 1. But again, Shrine of the Forsaken Gods does allow you to hardcast Ulamog in the late game. Okay,
well, Paul had the answer for the turn 2 Grimflayer from Shaun in the form of a Harness Lightning. Does not have turn 4 Aetherworks Marvel.
And Shaun
or if he does, he's aware of what Shaun's playing and doesn't want to play into it. So one or the other. And in the meantime, excuse me, Shaun McLaren is stuck on lands, but running out 2 drops. What did he find?
That's a Marvel on top.
Okay, well, he might have had one in his hand, too, and just been like, look, I want to get 6 energy first.
Right. And that's the thing. Shaun McLaren, it might be a little more difficult for him to get people because now that he went 9-0, people kind of know about his deck. And
everybody knows.
Know that he's got main deck Dissenter's Deliverance. Now, at the earlier rounds of the Grand Prix, for example, he played against a Marvel opponent who just ran out of Marvel on turn 4 without the ability to activate it because oftentimes when you play against Black-Green, you're more concerned about hand disruption, like Transgress the Mind, than you are about main deck Dissenter's Deliverance. But yeah, it looks like Shaun's stuck on 2 lands, and Paul Dean's, I can't imagine him just not playing the Marvel here.
What is he even thinking about?
I don't know.
Paul, you didn't show up to not spin the Marvel, my friend.
Right. It's like, do I have a better play here than spinning the Marvel?
Sure doesn't. Go.
Okay. Interesting.
And this is going to be a tough one for McLaren. Now, he does have that Dissenter's Deliverance in his hand.
Yeah, it is interesting that he opted not to cast this.
That's interesting because he could have found out if he hit on the Marvel beforehand.
Exactly.
Now he could run his creatures into any number of creatures, or maybe there's going to be an Ulamog here.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think he hit one.
Paul definitely whiffed here, and that was kind of Shaun's game plan here. Hope they whiff on that first Marvel activation.
Yeah, but still, it is interesting, right, from Shaun's perspective, because if he goes Dissenter's Deliverance, and let's say Paul goes activate Marvel Rogue Refiner.
Right.
Right, like that can just block the Whining Constrictor right here, and Shaun would know. Well, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, Shaun had to dodge a lot of different things here. I think maybe he was playing around the main deck sensors that Paul has in his deck. Shaun is stuck on 2 lands, and he wants to make sure that the Dissenter's Deliverance resolves.
I see.
But yes, if Paul Dean just hit like a Whirler Virtuoso, Shaun would have been in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he would have been in big troubles, but he hit in a tune with Ether.
You get your lands.
Pretty bad, though.
You're right.
I mean, that has to be... Is that the actual just worst hit?
I have played against a Marvel opponent where they spun the Marvel and nothing happened, and I was like, wait, you forgot to play something there, friend. And yeah, apparently it was like 5 lands and a sensor, so he just completely whiffed.
Okay,
yeah,
you got me. That is worse. But now Shaun really does have to take this turn to kill the Marvel, right? Like if you look, Paul's on 2 energy, but he's got the puzzle knot, so he has a spin sitting there.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, it really put Shaun to the test because Shaun could maybe just take the gamble here and play out another thread and hope Paul misses again, thinking that what he has on the board is just not going to be enough. But
I don't think I'd have it in me. I don't mind taking on extra risk, but like just letting my opponent spin twice when I have the answer in my hand.
Yeah, definitely.
Ugh.
I mean, Shaun's still in a lot of trouble here. I mean, he's still stuck on 2 lands.
Definitely.
Paul has so many different cards he could play. Shaun could use a Dissenter's Deliverance, but Paul could just play Chandra next turn.
And Shaun was deciding what to do with his Grim Flare trigger. He decided to put all the cards in the graveyard, and yeah, there's that Dissenter's Deliverance from McLaren.
So that should give Paul an extra energy.
Yep. He's at 3.
And now if Paul has another Marvel, he likely won't run it out, at least until he uses the Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot to get the 6 energy.
And there's
Oh,
Chandra.
and there is the Chandra,
yeah,
yep.
Yeah, he had it in
Delirium check. Doesn't look like he has Delirium, so I think he can actually Chandra for 3, which is a big, big game.
Yeah, he's got instant land creature. And that's probably just game over.
Yeah.
I mean, Shaun being stuck on lands this long, I mean, look at Paul.
Yeah, I believe Shaun has a Never to Return, but...
Well, he hit a hissing Quagmire.
All right, well, there is an Ulamog.
Also, Paul's got a Sensor, which looks pretty good when your opponent's missing lands.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Dean's hand is pretty horrible. Yeah, he opted to use the 0 ability on the Chandra to look for another Marvel here.
Very powerful ability on Chandra.
Right.
You can see that middle ability. Discard your hand. Then you draw that many cards +1.
Yeah. And he could opt for like a main phase Glimmer of Genius here. Oh,
look at that shrine getting value.
That 1 mana Puzzle Knots.
Boom. I don't think Shaun McLaren's impressed by this.
I mean, Paul did not play a Marvel that turn. Maybe Shaun just wants to get the Chandra off the board.
Yeah, and he did play around Sensor here by drawing and playing a land before casting it.
Right.
So it actually worked out okay for Shaun. I mean, yeah, Paul Dean doesn't have anything going on board, but you know that's not going to last.
Right, but Paul Dean is at 20 life here, and he's got a ton of lands in play. You can almost hard cast his Ulamog, and he found his Marvel. So at this point, he doesn't even need to find an Ulamog to win the game.
Jeez, he found another Glimmer.
Yeah. So how much mana are we looking at here? We got 8 mana. 8 mana on the board to just hard cast Ulamog. And he's got 2 lands in hand. So we can just play an Ulamog next turn.
Does he have one in his hand?
He has 2 lands in hand, and he's got the Shrine in play. So.
I meant Ulamog.
Oh, yeah. He drew an... Oh, no. He doesn't. He discarded it, right. To the Chandra Flamecaller.
Yeah. Still, he could find one.
Yeah.
He's going to find one either with the Marvel or with his draw step. So... Yeah, this is a tough spot for McLaren because he's so far behind now, yet not materially, you know? Like, it's not like his life total's under any threat. It's just that, like, you know, when you look at cards in hand and resources available, he's just buried.
Paul Dean's up on cards, up on lands, permanents, energy.
Yeah, he's crushed on energy.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Whee!
Oh, well, there it is. And
got him.
That should probably just be the game.
Wow, look at that. It destroyed all of Shaun McLaren's permanents.
And
his graveyard.
Two things.
Exiled his library, too. Only the top few cards, it looks like. 1 clue token is all that remains of Shaun McLaren. And that is game 1 going to Paul Dean. Shaun McLaren's... mana issues really were the story of that game. I mean, sure, Paul got to do what he wanted to do with this stuff, but at the end of the day, when you're only stuck on 2 lands, you can't really do too much. We've got more live Magic for you here from Montreal. We'll be back right after this. And welcome back to coverage here at Grand Prix Montreal. We're just easing our way into the day here. Nice and sunny outside, it looks like, or maybe some sunshine out there a little later. But inside, the battles await. Let's take a look at Maxime Auger versus
I think we've
Bradley
seen this
Robinson.
matchup before.
Oh, Temur Marvel.
Yeah. I will say this, though. It looks like Bradley is up a game here. The post-board matches of the Marvel Mirror are actually pretty interesting, in my opinion. There's a lot of different ways you can sideboard. I've seen, it looks like both people opted to keep the puzzle knots, but I've seen people just board out puzzle knots for more action, kind of board into the trackers and the counter magic and cut the puzzle knots. I've seen people try to take the role of the control deck by boarding in Sweltering Suns and trying to dealing with these mid-range creatures. I've seen people shave Marvel. There's just a lot of different things you could do. And I'm not actually sure what the best way to board for the matchup is, because I've heard lots of different opinions from lots of great players on just exactly the best way to kind of approach this matchup. And again, game one, sure, a lot because there's so little interaction. A lot of game one just comes down to who got to play the turn 4 Marvel and who hit their Ulamog. But after sideboard, both decks go up to 4 negates, right? So oftentimes a Marvel just doesn't resolve, because if you have one in your hand, you're never letting your opponent, you're always going to be keeping up the 2 mana for your negate for the Marvel. So oftentimes you do just have tireless trackers and virtuosos just kind of ending the game.
Getting the grind on.
Exactly.
I like it.
But then what happens there is you play this mid-range strategy, and oftentimes you don't have enough energy because you're cutting puzzle knots, and you don't have enough energy to actually just use your Marvel if you do manage to land it on turn 4.
By the way, I love that Bradley tapped that puzzle knot before sacking it. That is some precise play.
It does tap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
most people just pick it up and put it in the graveyard.
Right.
Like a hooligan. Not Bradley.
Yeah, so Bradley has kind of an interesting decision here, right? He's got multiple negates in hand. He's got that tracker, but he's opting not to play the tracker because Max is going to go up to 10 energy. If Brad just plays tracker land, Max just can untap and play a Marvel. So
yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's a real long-term issue too. Even if they don't hit something spectacular off the first spin, we've seen that this Temur Marvel deck, it's pretty consistent at being able to spin effectively every turn.
Right, like even if you whiff on the Ulamog, oftentimes you'll just be able to hit another puzzle knot or a Glimmer of Genius, which gives you 2 energy and likely finds you more cards that produce energy. So again, with the Marvel on the board, it's not very difficult to get additional spins, so you can't really let it resolve unless you have a way to actually get rid of the Marvel. If you have your Dissenter's Deliverance, if you're holding a Confiscation Coup, cards like that. But I imagine, I know he's got double negate here, but I imagine Brad's going to go for the tracker this turn because he can go tracker into a land. Yeah. So he's going to get his value. If Max has Marvel into negate, so be it. But Bradley does have to add to the board here, so I do like going for the tracker this turn and playing conservatively last turn.
This is awesome, Paul. The chat's like, it doesn't tap.
I thought it actually tapped.
Me too. So now, Bradley, maybe we need like a judge, get the head judge over there. Yeah. Did you tap this before sacrificing it?
That was not a legal
game
play.
Loss. Yeah. Oh, God. Great start to our day, Paul.
The little things.
We're crushing it.
Yeah. That's why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Max.
Don't worry, chat. We're all over it. Max is going to offer a trade that will not be taken by Bradley.
Yeah, Bradley goes, bring the beats.
Yep.
So Max does have a Harness Lightning in hand. I imagine he's probably going to try to fire it off here. He could, however, wait.
Well, 2 negates in hand for Bradley, but 4 lands up for Maxime after this. He's going to be hard-pressed to fight for this Tireless tracker and tap out.
Yeah, because this could be a setup, right? Because Brad can be thinking, well, maybe he's trying to get me to counter this so I can so Max can try to resolve a Marvel. So yeah, it's really difficult in that spot to actually just go ahead and counter it. Besides, you already got your value.
All right, well, our first match is up, and I want to see how that one goes. Let's jump back over to Shaun McLaren versus Paul Dean.
Oh, wow, no 2-drop out of Shaun. That's
What
a
in the
lot
heck?
of lands,
I mean, he
too.
has his mana, but
He must have mulliganed.
yeah, he did mulligan, by the way, in the first game.
Okay.
Before we came on camera, he had mulligan to 5, which helps explain why we saw such a tough draw from him with just the 2 lands for most of the game.
Right. Yeah, it does look like Shaun has a tireless tracker, but opting to wait. Oh, interesting.
Gonti.
Okay,
It's
I
going to
see.
get censored, though.
Yeah, he could have played tracker land, but instead opted to play the Gonti there. Both of them, like, censor will get him no matter what.
Yeah, unless he
Yeah.
decides to get, I don't know how to describe it, but very conservative and go land tracker.
Right, but then at that point...
It just makes me shiver to even think of it.
The thing is, at that point, if you're on that game plan, you should probably just wait till turn 5 to just go tracker land go. He could have also done that. And I guess Shaun, by running out the Gonti, I think he's basically saying, yeah, I do value the tracker a little more because it will give you additional advantage if you don't have a removal spell. Yeah, but Paul's got a couple of Harness Lightnings in hand. I imagine he's going to fire one off here. Although it looks like he might be shy on lands as well, so he could also be considering just casting a Glimmer of Genius here to make sure he hits his land drops.
Paul's going to chip in for 3 for starters, though.
Because there's a nice card he had in his hand. It's a 1-of, but he has a Confiscation Coup in his hand. So I think he was considering casting a Glimmer, making sure he hits his land drop, then use a Confiscation Coup to steal the Tireless Tracker. Oh.
That is tempting.
That's another tracker from Shaun McLaren.
He's going to run it out there.
I don't think so. I think he's content with just having a tracker and play a turn. He could have played tracker land tracker. But that leaves you pretty vulnerable to like a sweeper, like a Radiant Flames or a Sweltering Sun, something along those lines.
Yeah, and as we can see, Harness Lightning trading for Tireless Tracker twice now this game, but both times the tracker having generated a clue.
Yeah, that's a favorable trade for Shaun, of course.
Sure,
it's
yeah.
kind of like when you use a removal spell on a Rogue Refiner. It just feels bad because you know you're down a card.
Totally. Now, Paul does have the ability to recoup some of this loss. You see him doing that right now.
Right.
But still, it's a process. Like, it's not, he's only getting 1 card back off of this Glimmer. He's still not even, as far as these trades with Shaun.
Yeah.
Of course, the problem for Shaun is that with each time that Paul goes down a card in that transaction, it's a lot of mana, and also Paul's just taking no damage. He's at 20.
And that's the thing. If they're taking these like 1-for-1 trades in the early game, that's something Paul doesn't mind because his deck has the ability to go over the top of whatever Shaun does, right? So as long as Paul stays at a healthy life total, and Paul's actually ahead. Paul's at 20 still. Like, this is going to favor Paul by, I mean, at some point Paul's going to find a marvel, right? And then the game just totally changes. And Shaun needs to have an aggressive draw to basically pressure Paul's life total. Just using a bunch of hand disruption spells is just not really going to get the job done if you don't have, the turn 2 play and force Paul to, or put Paul into an uncomfortable situation. And Paul's hand is loaded.
Woo! Transgressive Mind sees some hits, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Confiscation to Tireless Tracker, Radiant Flames. There's also Chandra down at the bottom there, and that is an Ether Meltdown to go with the land there.
That's the thing. Like, this is such a rough spot. Like, what do you even take? Like,
dude, don't ask me. I was going to ask you.
Well, I mean, I feel like, so it looks like he has a Tireless Tracker in hand. So if that's the case, probably you take the Confiscation Coup because Paul can take it and start getting an advantage himself.
Okay, but he's just going to untap and play Chandra?
Yeah, I mean,
what a bad spot.
I guess a lot of it also depends on if he has an answer for the Chandra, but yeah, it looks like he opted for the Confiscation Coup.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you at least make him do something.
Yeah.
But, wow, you can't be happy if you're Shaun
no.
McLaren. This was not good news.
Yeah. And Paul does have the ability here to just either cast a Radiant Flames or just play a Chandra. But the thing is, playing Chandra and going -3 isn't a great option for Paul, as Shaun McLaren does have a Hissing Quagmire in play. So if Paul opts to -3 on the Chandra, Shaun can't finish off the Chandra with the Hissing Quagmire.
Yeah, still a precarious position for McLaren, but hey, at least that's a game plan.
Yeah,
like getting your Tireless Tracker stolen is not a game plan, right?
So Ether Meltdown is an interesting card that Paul opted to bring in here. I guess he figures, one of the ways he can lose is with an early Grim Flare that might get out of hand. So that, using the Aether Meltdown effectively shuts the creature down. But it's looking pretty awkward here against a Tireless Tracker. It's not really what you want to be doing to kind of deal with that problem. So I don't think Paul wants to let this Tireless Tracker get out of hand, so he wants to deal with it in some way. Again, playing the Chandra doesn't seem great here, so I think Paul might opt to just attack with the Rogue Refiner and just play a Radiant Flames. You're not going to get a huge 2-for-1 with that card, so using it just as a spot removal spell doesn't seem bad here. Then on the following turn, you can drop the Chandra, and if you tick it up to 5, then the Hissing Quagmire can't even deal with it. So.
Yeah, I like your line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is tempting when you have Radiant Flames to think, well, how many creatures could I kill? But at this juncture, it's been a 1-for-1 game, right? And I think that he's going to have to just settle for that for the Radiant Flames as well.
Not only that, Shaun cast Transgress the Mind. He knows about the Radiant Flames, right? So he's not going to play into it.
Never.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, nice play, Paul. And he just gets to pass the turn, but oh boy, does Shaun McLaren have his hands full here? Yeah,
Shaun does have a couple of copies of Dispossess in his sideboard, and this does seem like the time, just the perfect time for him to cast it if he draws it.
He drew a Never to Return.
Oh wow, that is a great draw.
That really actually does give him an answer for Chandra.
Yeah. And does he have Delirium? It doesn't look like it, so I don't think he can. He could have done something like play Grimflayer then Rishkar if he had Delirium to make a 5/5 Grimflayer so that you can play around the Chandra, but because he doesn't have it and because he knows about the Chandra, he's probably just going to run out one threat.
Yeah. Yeah, his deck, the black-green aggro deck here, it really is not particularly well set up to get Delirium. It gets it sort of incidentally, but we've seen him many times on, have a fairly late game situation like this, and he's not even close, right? He's just got, what, creature sorcery right now? So
Shaun has a couple of options. He might actually just activate Hissing Quagmire, then use Rishkar to pump the Hissing Quagmire and the Rishkar itself.
Oh, he didn't. So he's just gonna play the Grimflayer, I guess.
Yeah, that's what it looks like he's doing.
I liked your line. That makes sense to me because that kind of hits from two different angles. It gets him some value.
Paul's just holding this meltdown. He's like, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Let's do it. Do it, man. What is he hesitating for?
Play it.
Oh, he wants to know if it'll fall off.
Oh, yes, and it will.
It will fall off.
Yeah. Yeah, that is not a bad thing to do, especially if you want to protect your Chandra, just using the Meltdown. If the Ether Meltdown didn't fall off.
But the +1/+1 counter would not have from McLaren there.
Right. Although playing the Grimflayer does put a little more pressure on Paul, like he has to try to get something off the board. I guess
pressure alleviated.
Yeah, I guess Shaun also did know about the Ether Meltdown. So I think maybe going with the Rishkar play was a little better then because,
I agree.
Paul can definitely take his time here. And it looks like he's got a tracker, right? Might even consider just playing the tracker here and getting ahead with the tracker.
Rather than the Chandra.
Right. Because Paul doesn't know Shaun's hand. I mean, Shaun could have a Never to Return, and Paul's seen it. Paul's seen his deck list. He knows that that's in his deck, so get all the good spells out of your hand first before you play a Chandra and maybe use the Zero ability to kind of upgrade your hand.
Sure.
Although it looks like he drew a Glimmer Genius, so I don't expect the Chandra to be looting anytime soon.
Upgrade acquired.
Shaun getting a little flooded here.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to have to just use his Never to Return on the Tireless Tracker instead. I mean, he knows that Chandra's lurking in hand for Paul Dean, and he is going to need an answer for that as well. But as you said, I mean, the Tireless Tracker is going to kind of run away with this thing on its own.
Right.
Yeah, he's just got to deal with it.
Yeah,
he says, I'll have to deal with that other problem another day because Paul has enough pressure here with Tireless Tracker that he's just going to kind of got to get the job done. He's going to snipe the Glimmer of Genius with return.
Yeah, a lot of Marvel decks do play one copy of Torrential Gearhulk, so it is a relevant card to get. Paul has 3 copies of Harness Lightning in his graveyard, or like 2 copies of Harness Lightning in his graveyard, so getting one of those doesn't really accomplish a whole lot. And that's a Marvel.
He's on 7 energy.
Yeah. And for 2 mana, look at that.
Boom. Paul's just showing off at this point. But this has been a beating. I mean, Shaun McLaren has felt like ever since he cast that Transgress the Mind, it's just felt like he's behind.
Right.
Every stage. It's just, he's doing what he needs to do to keep parity on board, but the threats in hand for Paul Dean are looming, and now there's even worse case scenario with an Aetherworks Marvel there.
So there has to be a good reason why Paul opted to wait there, but there are a lot of advantages to also using the Marvel on the main phase. Paul Dean is boarding in Tireless Trackers, right? And he didn't play a land first turn. He played the Lumbering Falls afterwards. So if he Marveled, missed, and hit a Tracker, he could play a land for a clue. He also is playing Chandra Flamecaller in his deck. If he hits Chandra Flamecaller, he can get an activation on his main phase, whereas if he plays it at instant speed, you don't get any value out of it. So at the same time, you know, you could use the Marvel to ambush a creature, and he might buy him some damage here, because Shaun is kind of like, you know, just might not be inclined to attack here because of the fear of Paul hitting any creature. But at the same time, if Paul hits an Ulamog, game's over anyways.
Right.
So Shaun just has to attack.
Paul's running out all his threats here.
Yeah, this is just not a great spot for Shaun, but he gets to make 2 creatures with...
Shaun, yeah.
Sorry, Shaun. He gets to make 2 creatures with 5 toughness because of the Winding Constrictor, which means that at least the Chandra in Paul's hand isn't going to be able to sweep up the whole board. Oh, no, he only gets to make, he only gets to make 1 creature with 5 toughness. He can turn the Winding Constrictor into a 4/5, but something else will turn into a 4/4. So the Chandra, the snake will survive.
So he's going to go ahead and put it on the Hissing Quagmire because it could survive, although it will not survive an Ulamog if that's what Paul Dean hits here. Let's see what he gets.
And he does it in a response to the Rish card trigger, because if he whiffs, he could still use a Harness Lightning to get rid of the Winding Constrictor.
Easy,
Which one?
Buddy. He's like, do you want the stamped one or the not stamped one?
Do you think Shaun could see it when he showed him that?
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's game. Shaun McLaren just extends the hand and says, I'm not beating that.
Right.
Sad Shaun McLaren.
And that's the thing about the deck. A lot of people go, oh man, this Marvel that can just kill you turn 4. Well, no, it's also really good at just playing Magic.
Yep.
And at some point in the game, you can also just get them, you know, turn 10, turn 12.
Yeah. I mean, he could have drawn either Aetherworks Marvel or an Ulamog and been in good shape there.
Right. He also just didn't. Yeah. He could have just not drawn Marvel and still probably been okay.
Yeah.
He had the Chandra. He got some advantages off the tracker.
Well,
it looks like
Paul Dean was undefeated coming in as well as Shaun McLaren, and Paul Dean's going to stay that way. Get into game 3 here. Yeah. Maxime Auger versus Bradley Robinson. Both players undefeated in the sense that they don't have a loss, though Bradley did pick up a draw, it looks like.
Yeah. One thing that we've been seeing a lot of in this kind of head-to-head, at least in the sideboarded games, is very often the games are decided by the 3-mana creatures. You have, of course, the Tireless Trackers, the Virtuosos, and the Rogue Refiners. And a large part of that is because both sides are boarding in up to 4 negates and multiple dispels as well. So the only thing that actually resolves are the creatures. You're looking to aggressively counter, you know, the Glimmer of Geniuses, the Chandras, and all that stuff, and the Marvels. But again, when you run out that Whirler Virtuoso, you just know it's always going to resolve, unless people start playing cards like Disallow or Void Shatter in their sideboard. Kind of interesting to see how these players sideboarded. I think Bradley kind of flashed his sideboard, and I saw some Puzzle Knots. I think I saw some Chandra Flamecolors. But, you know, again, kind of testing this week, some members of my team were like, well, no, Chandra Flamecaller might actually be good because, again, it's all about these mid-range creatures. And if you can resolve her, she does kind of sweep up the board and also provide you an alternate win condition. But then on the flip side, you're going to be tapped out a lot of the time if you're going to play out the Chandra, and then your opponent can just marvel you.
Right.
Yeah, it's not an uncommon thing. I mean, we saw Yuya Watanabe bring in Radiant Flames in the mirror.
Yeah. I was surprised by that when I saw it.
Right, right.
But it is so common to see the board state littered with those value creatures, like you said. It just happens all the time.
Yeah. I guess it is better out of his deck because his list also didn't play Servant of the Conduit. So, you know, oftentimes he is going to be able to get, there's just going to be a lot of situation where he just gets a Servant of the Conduit plus a Rogue Refiner or a Virtuoso, and you get a little advantages there. His 2-mana cards are Puzzle Knots and Counter Spells. So will we see a real game of Magic being played, or are we going to see a turn 4 Ulamog? By the way, those sleeves always trick me. They just look like lands, you know?
That is the idea.
I know that's the point, but it's just like, if you're also playing with those specific forests.
Oh, God, yeah. Could get awkward.
Do you think they should allow that?
That you don't play?
Like, you can't play with those forests? You just put it like face down in front of you with like your forest stack. It's just like,
I don't know.
Yeah. So if you take a look at Max's hand, he's got some lands, he's got the Marvel, but I don't think he has a lot of ways to produce energy. And that is something that is pretty common after sideboard, because oftentimes you do board out many of your ways to produce energy. Marvel is more like a turn 7 or 8 play after you've cast some glimmers, played some creatures, and then like you resolve it safely with a negate backup. It's so much harder to just go turn 4 Marvel.
And it's so much less about that anyway, right?
Right. Yeah, oftentimes being the first person to just try to run out a turn 4 Marvel is the incorrect play, because your opponent can negate it and then play their own Marvel.
Right.
That's just a lot of lands. I imagine Bradley's going to keep this. It's not a great hand, but he's got all of his colors. He's got a Virtuoso. You get a Scry. Okay. Must have been some kind of action card there on top. Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting that he opted to just play out the Sheltered Thicket there, as he does have a lot of lands in hand. And was that maybe his only green source? No, he had a forest. Okay.
Why do you say it's interesting?
Well, the thing is, you know, he doesn't have a lot of action in his hand, so he might want to just look for more threats and cycle it instead. Because again, he scryed an Attune with Ether on top as well, so that means he's basically just choosing to have 5 lands in his hand, which doesn't seem especially good here. You could always just hold on to the Sheltered Thicket and kind of wait at some point, you know, maybe turns 3 or 4 to see if you want to actually cycle or play it out.
Virtuoso.
Yeah.
Looks like it's going to get
so with
Harness Lightning with the trigger on the stack.
Yeah, this does prevent Bradley from being able to make a Thopter there, because Bradley was only on 2 energy at the time.
No reason to let him have the option, even if he didn't make it.
Yeah, if Brad just has a ton of ways to make energy and doesn't have a Marvel, he's probably just making a Thopter there. Ooh, and Bradley does have a Marvel with the Ether Hub.
Yeah, but as you described, it's often very incorrect to just jam it on turn 5.
Yeah.
If it gets countered there, it could be a disaster for Bradley.
Right, and this like would have, for example, would have been a decent time to like run out the Shelter Ticket, because he had the option to do so. And then because he has the Marvel with the spell backup, right? So now he really wants to have those 5 lands in play.
Right.
I just felt like you could have probably waited a couple of turns and see what happened, because you're in no rush in this matchup.
Right.
If you're playing against, you know, Mardu vehicles, which maybe is a relic of the past at this point. But if you play against a deck like Mardu vehicles, yeah, you know, you can't afford to wait. You need to play those tap lands early. But here, I mean, the games do go kind of long. And then I can't imagine Bradley just not going for it next turn. I guess he might be tempted to wait another turn if he draws another land, if that allows him to cast double Dispel. Oh, but Max only has 2 mana up. He can only have a negate here, so Brad's going to go for it here.
He's got that Dispel to back up.
Right. And there's a negate.
And Max seems going to be like, oh, no.
Max knows.
I mean, he still has no choice, but here we go.
Right, let's spin. Bradley is tapped out here.
Oh, and he hit the Ulamog too. Bango. Game over.
It was a little different. It was a turn 5 Ulamog.
Yeah, wow. And that's just game, right? I mean, these sometimes play out like that, and
yeah,
Maxime just he's just on stone 0 outs here.
Yeah. I was talking about how the mirror can be highly interactive and really interesting, but sometimes also you just get marveled. Yep. You get Ulamogged. It's a game trail, Revealing Forest.
No. It looks like Max is going to fight the fight here, but it'll be a short one. Look at that hand.
And he drew a negate, so he has protection from a Marvel. But Max is only on 2 energy. A Marvel doesn't even do a whole lot.
That was the problem. If he was on 6 energy, he would have an out.
Right.
He could go land, Marvel, but with 2 energy, it's too much. And the problem is, even if he goes like Woodweaver's Puzzle not here,
he just doesn't have enough cards left.
Yeah, he just gets his library.
And on top of that, Brad drew a negate, so he's got full protection here.
Well,
what do we got here?
For those of you at home that like watching very large monsters attack, welcome.
When Ulamogs attack.
Because that is
part like 7 at this point.
Yeah. Maxime is taking the punishment.
All right. Well.
Counter that.
Yep.
Game over.
Yeah.
All right. So Bradley Robinson is going to improve to 9-0-1 with Temur Marvel, handing Maxime Auger's first loss.
Yep.
Still in great shape though at 9-1 to put together a run. This was not as big of a field as some of the GPs we've had of late, in the 850-ish range.
Right.
And that means that it'll be a little more forgiving about the records you need to get into the top 8. So that's going to do it for the live coverage here in round number 10. We'll be back with more after these messages. And welcome back to coverage here at Grand Prix Montreal. This is Paul Cheon. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, and we're going to be here all day bringing you coverage of probably Temur, Aetherworks, Marvel, but there's other decks too, and we've got a little time walk magic for you, so let's head into that right now.
And oh!
Look at this, blue-black control versus Mardu vehicles. I saw you asking in the chat, and I have delivered. Shaheen Soorani at 8-1 with blue-black control.
Even I'm surprised.
Andre Berube's on Mardu vehicles as well. A throwback deck at this point.
Right. And Shaheen's got a nice little brew here. Blue-black control.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I was asking Shaheen why opt to play blue-black control over kind of the more traditional control deck in standard, which is blue-red, and he said Liliana turn 3 is one of the more powerful things you could be doing in standard right now. He said it's a great win condition. He expected a lot of zombies, and it's just a really fantastic card in that matchup as well. I got to see him emblem that thing a few times as well, and he actually got to emblem Liliana, then used the single copy of Westvale Abbey he has in his deck to flip it into an Ormondale.
That's awesome.
He was like, in the 100 matches I played or whatever, this is the first time I flipped it on camera or in the feature match.
That is super awesome.
Yeah. So Shaheen did probably tool his deck to be great against kind of the other aggressive deck of the format, which is the Zombies deck. I don't know how good he is against Mardu vehicles as much. I think you can kind of, when you're preparing for this tournament, you don't need to have Mardu vehicles at the top of your radar anymore. A card like Scrap Heap Scrounger is incredibly annoying to deal with, especially in blue-black, because you don't have access to cards like Magma Spray.
Right.
Right? So you just have to continue getting rid of it. Like, what's Shaheen going to do to this Scrounger? If he kills it, Andre just gets it back.
Yeah.
And if you look, Andre's also playing Spire Bluff Canal, which means, which also means it's not that much of a surprise that he's doing well, because he's probably playing some counter magic in a sideboard, specifically for the Marvel matchup.
Maybe a little Ceremonious Rejection.
Yeah, he could have Ceremonious Rejection. Metallic Rebuke is also a commonly played sideboard card, and also potentially Negate. I was looking through kind of all the deck lists that did well at Pro Tour Amonkhet, and there was one Mardu deck. There was only like 1 or 2 Mardu decks that went 7-3, and one of them was Splashing Blue. It was Kelvin Chu's Mardu Vehicles deck Splashing Blue, and he actually wrote an article about it, talking about how it's really important to have counter magic in your Mardu deck right now because of how popular Marvel is.
Oh, is Marvel popular?
Is Marvel a good deck?
Is that a deck that people are playing? All right, pull from tomorrow here from Shaheen. This is one of the marquee cards for the deck. This is part of the reason why you play a control deck right now.
And Shaheen is playing 3 copies of Pull from Tomorrow in his deck. Looks like he discarded a Yehenia's Expertise.
Oh, that's what that is.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that card in play for a while now.
Yeah, that's the thing. Normally, Yehenia's Expertise is pretty good against the aggressive strategies, but Mardu vehicles attacks you in a lot of different angles. You have the Scrounger, which removal is not very good against.
God, he's just
you
discarding.
have your vehicles. But yes, on Andre's side, you also have to not feel great that Shaheen is just discarding removal.
Yeah. The reason why is because Shaheen has a second copy in his hand. I see, Paul.
And Shaheen has got to be thrilled here. He's at a pretty life total, and it's turn 6.
Totally.
Andre hasn't tried to resolve a Gideon or anything like that. Oh, and he drew a fantastic follow-up here.
What did he get?
I see a Liliana, the last hope, so he can play a Yehenia's Expertise and put a Liliana onto the battlefield for free.
Oh, for 4 mana total?
Yeah.
Oh, he drew another one. Oh, watch this, kids. You're going to like this.
That is the only spell he can cast, by the way, off the Yehenia's Expertise.
Really?
Well, like a permanent.
Anticipate or something, but yeah.
Yeah. He has. He also has Anticipate, but there are very few cards he has in his deck.
That's
because
funny.
You're playing a deck with mostly removal spells and counter magic.
Yeah.
So.
Looks like Andre's asking a question.
Maybe can you counter the other effect of it? Maybe. So Andre can bring back the Scrap Heap Scrounger, but only one of them. So that'll bring the Liliana down to 1. So Liliana will survive here, which is the important thing.
Right, he gets to untap with Liliana, a handful of gas. He also has a Disallow in his hand.
Right.
So Shaheen, he's got to like his position at 11 life here.
It's a Cycled Canyon Slough.
Yeah.
Andre currently doesn't have any black mana. He does have an Unlicensed Disintegration, but I think he might have drawn into a Concealed Courtyard. Yeah, and, with...
Andre attacks him.
Wow.
Just doesn't care.
Aggro.
Shaheen's like, sure.
Okay. Did he not play his concealed courtyard? Did he not play a land this turn? Or maybe he just doesn't have a concealed courtyard.
I don't know.
Is that a Spire of Industries?
Let's see.
I feel like if you have a Black Source, you want to put it into play in case Shaheen does use a removal spell on your Scrap Heap Scrounger. But yeah, that looks like a... Oh, but yeah, he did have a concealed courtyard.
He did.
Huh.
All right.
Okay.
Weird. Heart of Kirin. This raises an interesting question. Oh, look at this.
Wow.
Pull from tomorrow for 6?
That's the third pull.
Yeah. He went 3, 4, 6.
Yeah.
He's pulling a lot of cards from tomorrow.
He does have a lot of instant speed ways.
Ooh, look at this.
To
Never to return.
return.
How about that?
Yeah.
Scrap Heap Scrounger?
Right. And this is an opportunity for Shaheen to get one of the Scroungers.
No black mana available for Andre.
Yeah, no black mana available, and also there's no other creature. He has 2 Scroungers in his graveyard, but he only has 1 creature currently. So, yeah, Andre can't even get a creature back here.
That's
can't get the Scrounger back, rather. We're going to see we can potentially see a Liliana emblem very soon. Shaheen's hand is stacked. I mean, he has drawn 20 cards this game.
Yeah. He's like, casually discard Liliana.
Yeah, I don't
Needs
need
it.
that. His hand is just like 4 counter spells and some removal spells, so...
I think, yeah, when we look back at Shaheen Soorani's life one day and think about what did he contribute to this world, this is it.
Yeah.
This situation is exactly where he is happiest.
Various control decks. I imagine Shaheen's probably just going to let this resolve.
I mean, if Andre never has another creature and just has a bunch of vehicles, Shaheen can really leverage that against him.
Yeah. Yeah, Andre.
I like this deck, by the way.
Yeah?
Shaheen's deck. It's cool.
The control actually being viable. Shaheen also does have answers to Planeswalkers, which Blue-Red does not, right? He has Never to Return in his deck. Whereas like when you're playing Blue-Red and your opponent resolves a Gideon, it's really hard to win. Shaheen actually has an out here.
Look at this zombie getting frisky. And by the way, that is Liliana on 7. So that could easily win the game for Shaheen next turn.
And look at Shaheen's hand. It's just like multiple counterspells, Gear Hulk, Fatal Push, and Grasp of Darkness.
I'm telling you, he's just literally in heaven right now. He's so happy. I mean, he'd probably be happier if he was at like 1 life or 2 life because it's more exciting that way.
Yeah, I think I would probably discard... I guess he wants to keep Essence Scatter in hand because that means that Andre can just never crew the Heart of Kirin.
Right.
So he's opting to keep the counter spells instead of the removal spells, which does make sense here.
Oh, Shaheen, ultimate that Planeswalker for me, buddy. I want to see it.
Also, look at that little extra value you get. You know, when you cast Return, you get a zombie token, and you're just speeding up the clock of the Liliana.
Boom! Emblem. Yeah, you do. You get extra zombie.
Oh, look, he came prepared. Look at all. He's got the emblem, too.
He probably has a pile of zombies in there.
Yeah.
Wow, this has just been a clinic from Shaheen Soorani. Also, it must be noted that Andre has drawn a lot of lands here.
Yeah, he had a pretty slow start. No Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
I think there was a turn where he probably could have played out a black mana source, and the Scrounger might have provided some pressure. But I think Shaheen just drew way too many cards this game, so he probably still would have been in a comfortable position. It is interesting that he opted not to attack with the zombie token, right?
I think he just got lazy.
I mean, he could have maybe been concerned about a flash in Archangel Avacyn, but he's got double Essence Scatter in
Yeah,
hand,
I think he just was like, I'm an ultimate this Planeswalker. Also, maybe like where are we at right now? I guess he's past the turn back.
I think, yeah, that was the end of turn.
All right.
Although, that's another thing, too. Andre should have probably looked to fire off the Unlicensed Disintegration before these Liliana emblem.
Saved him a full zombie there.
Yeah, well, not only that, the emblem wouldn't have happened, right? You would have dealt 3 damage to
you mean
Liliana.
before Liliana
right.
even
I mean,
got.
it's very likely that Shaheen has a counter, but you just can't let the Liliana emblem.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, the game's effectively over now.
Right. This is probably just like another Disintegration or something. Or Fatal
push one of your 4 zombies. Again, Shaheen's just like,
this might be another one.
Take one. Don't do it, Andre.
Oh, it's a disintegration.
No. He's going to disallow. He negated the other one, too. Shaheen's just like, my life total will stay at 8.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wow.
Go. 2 plus the number you already control.
And again, this is the big advantage you get when you play a control deck game 1. A lot of these people have to kind of be mindful that Heart of Kirin is a thing. You need an answer for it. You need to play Fatal Push. And these control decks are just, are completely immune to that spell.
Wow. What a beating.
Yeah.
Well, Shaheen Soorani takes down game 1 with this blue-black control deck. Though, post-board, let's see how things change.
Yeah, it's going to get a lot more interesting. Andre is going to be boarding out. Andre is going to be boarding out, all of those Fatal Pushes, probably the Aethersphere Harvesters as well. You don't want to overload on vehicles against a deck with so much removal. And he's probably going to replace that with some number of Planeswalkers, some counter magic, maybe a couple of Painful Truths,
How about a turn 1 play?
Yeah, turn 1 play is big too. One approach that I've disliked, that I've seen a lot of these Mardu vehicles try to do after sideboard, is turn into this like slow mid-rangey control deck against the control player.
Oh,
as a control player, you're literally playing into their game plan, right?
God, yeah.
Because, what do you think is going to happen when you just wait till turn 7 or 8 to like play your Sorin, instead of playing your 1-drop or your 2-drop. So that's one thing that I haven't liked. I think a more ideal strategy is to, again, try to be aggressive and maybe board in a couple of copies of Chandra, just and to have that be your top end.
Yeah, I mean, you're an expert control player, Paul. When your opponent does that, aren't you just like,
Yeah. Again,
like,
I've had so many games
exactly
where my opponent goes like, no creature turn 1, turn 2 Heart of Kirin, no creature turn 3.
Meanwhile,
turn
you're
4,
rubbing your hands together.
And I'm just like, I'm looking at all these cards, I'm like, all right. And they're like, turn 4, Gideon, please.
And you're like, counter it, untap, pull from tomorrow.
Yeah, and they're like, Obnixilis, please. It's just like every single turn, they're just trying to resolve a Planeswalker. That doesn't really work. You need to get under them.
Yeah, totally. They have cards like Pull from Tomorrow that you don't have access to that can get you so far ahead.
And I think people get kind of sucked in because traditionally when you're playing mid-range decks, those are cards you bring in against control. But it's hard to make that full-on transformation when you're playing the Mardu Vehicles deck. You just have too many creatures.
Shaheen has Fatal Push for Heart of Kirin, meaning he's not going to take any damage outside of that second copy of Toolcraft Exemplar.
And I imagine he did that with the trigger on the stack, and wow.
This is a great start from Andre.
Right, but Andre should have played...
Oh, he punted 3 damage there, didn't he?
Right, he should have played the Scrounger prior to attacking because, again, Shaheen could have had a Fatal Push there. Oh, no, he let the trigger resolve. It didn't matter.
It didn't matter?
He goes, Toolcraft Exemplar, trigger on the stack. My creatures get bigger.
Yeah.
Because the Heart of Kirin doesn't turn into a creature yet.
Yes.
So he can't have... So it's a 3-2. Then he crews... Yeah. So never mind. He took the 3 damage there. Okay. Makes a little more sense.
Yeah, and check this out.
Yeah.
Whew.
And
Shaheen is feeling the heat here.
Right.
This one is not going nearly as smoothly.
Definitely. And Andre has 3 mana up. He could have something like a Metallic Rebuke or Negate in hand. He does have a hub with 1 energy. But if Andre does have an artifact here, I would be tempted to play it out to make sure that the Toolcraft Exemplar can get in for additional damage.
This is a great start from Andre. He is bum rushing here.
And I saw blue card. I think that was a negate. And Scrounger just, the perfect threat here too. Shaheen just can't get rid of both. Oh, and look at that. He has a nice little sideboard tech card here.
Oh.
I was talking
about disregard.
Yeah, how I was talking about
all my life.
How
Ooh, that's exiled, buddy.
Right, blue-black doesn't really have a good way to deal with a Scrappy Scrounger.
Oh, God.
Complete disregard.
This makes me nervous, though. This is a time walk match, so we can't tell them, but the Scrap Heap Scrounger is not exiled.
Right, no, yeah.
Oh, it makes me nervous.
Definitely be exiled.
He didn't bring it back, at least. Okay,
Shaheen's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
I have this in my sideboard specifically for this reason.
3 mana removal spell, buddy. Like,
yeah. By the way, as a control player, that is the creature I hate the most. Thraben Inspector.
Me too.
It's so annoying.
It's so annoying. Why do they get free creatures like this? Complete disregard number 2.
Disregards. Okay, but wait, Andre does have a negate here. Does he want to fire it off?
Yeah, he's only got access to blue mana 1 time.
I think it might actually be worth saving the Scrounger because there's not a lot of ways Blueback can deal with the Scrounger, right?
Ooh, he let it go.
Yeah, that's
Clock significantly reduced.
right.
Still going to take 3 here, though.
3, but if you had the counter that you put him down to 5, and I mean, what are you saving to negate 4?
Well, he's going to fire it off on this pull from tomorrow that Shaheen's going to try on end step. He's going to take 4, go down to 4, and then assuming that Andre doesn't go for a threat, Shaheen is going to go pull from tomorrow for 4, and then Andre's going to counter that.
Oh, he drew another 1-drop here? That's perfect.
If that is what he drew, that is just too good. Wow.
Yeah, and he's opting not to crack the clue.
And this is going to get negated. Andre has really put together a nice game here. Early curve out, tons of pressure, forcing Shaheen to react to him, and now he gets the big payoff of waiting with that negate.
Oh, it's a metallic rebuke. Sorry, I knew it was a blue counter.
Sure,
but
rebuke. Yeah. Either way, he gets to counter a pull from tomorrow, which is really the way that Shaheen was going to try to stabilize this. He looks like way too far behind now, doesn't he?
Right.
I mean, I suppose he could always just find a sweeper, but he doesn't have one right now.
So does the Shaheen have a pull here?
Pull for 2, desperation time.
I don't think that's going to be enough.
And he missed. Shaheen Soorani loses game 2. Andre picks up the win. What a nice draw from Andre. Just tons of pressure.
Yeah.
All right, well, it sounds like pairings have just gone up in the building here, which means, unfortunately, we're going to have to cut this match short because we've got live magic coming up for you shortly. I can tell you, though, Shaheen Soorani won the match 2-1, and he was able to finish off Andre there being on the play in the last game. All right, that's going to do it for this round. Round 10, we're going to be back with more after these messages.